Hello everyone watching at home. My name is Howard Williams and thank you for taking the time to watch this short speech. The topic of my inspirational speech today was once called the most notorious liar in the country by the FBI. He had been arrested and stabbed and the target of numerous assassination attempts, one of which was successful. He also earned a Nobel Peace Prize and a Grammy, and was once named Man of the Year by Time magazine. He once said that faith is taking that first step even when you can't see the whole staircase. He had a knack for coming up with great quotes just like that. The he I'm referring to is none other than Martin Luther King Jr. King was born on January 15, 1929, to Martin Luther King Sr. and Alberta King. Martin was one of 3 children, with an older sister Christine and a younger brother Albert. Martin attended segregated public schools until the age of 15, where he would graduate from high school 2 years early and be admitted to Morehouse College. After graduating in 1948, he would then attend Crozer Theological Seminary, where he would finish with a Bachelor of Divinity and even be elected class president of his mostly white senior class. King's next move would be to a graduate program at the University of Boston. While in Boston, he would meet a young singer named Coretta Scott. The two would be married in 1953 and eventually settled down in Montgomery, Alabama. This union would produce 4 children: Yolanda, Martin III, Dexter, and Bernice. The King family home paint barely dried before their new hometown would become the epicenter in the fight for civil rights for African Americans across the country, marked by historical events that would take place there. The landmark case of Brown versus the Board of Education, for one, followed by a feisty and exhausted African American woman who refused to give up her seat on a bus to a white passenger. This particular event would begin a 381-day bus boycott that King would be named the official spokesperson of. Nearly a year after the boycott, the Supreme Court would rule that segregated seating on buses was unconstitutional. This would cast a spotlight on a still young King as an inspirational advocate of nonviolent disobedience. King's message of nonviolence was returned with a message of violence when, while away, his home was firebombed by white supremacists. The success of the boycott would lead to the creation of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, whose motto was now one hair on one head of one person should be harmed. King would serve as president of this organization as long as he lived. The King family would move to his hometown of Atlanta, Georgia in 1960, where his efforts with the SCLC would continue. His involvement in peaceful protests and sit-in and nonviolent protesting would eventually result in his arrest on April 12, 1963. It was while in jail that King would write the now famous Letter from a Birmingham Jail, where he advocated for the right for civil disobedience against those that disagreed. King understood, as based on the quote, that freedom was never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It had to be demanded by the oppressed. Later that year, King would work with other civil rights groups in organizing the March on Washington. The purpose of this event was to highlight injustices faced by Black Americans across the country. Between 200,000 and 300,000 people would attend, making this march a turning point not only in the fight for civil rights, but in the eventual passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This historic march culminated in a speech by King, but not just any speech, the speech. On August 28, 1963, at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., King would give his now historic I Have a Dream speech. The historic march, culminated by the speech, as King put it, was an attempt to cash a check. King stated that the nation wrote a promissory note to all Americans when it signed the Declaration of Independence, guaranteeing inalienable rights to every man, woman, and child. King believed that Black Americans, however, were given a bad check that was returned insufficient funds. But King believed the Bank of Justice could never be bankrupt. An important theme of King's speech was centered around his dream, which was based on the promise that all men are created equal. King dreamed that the descendants of slaves and slave owners could one day come together in peace. He dreamed that his 4 children would be judged on their character and not the color of their skin. He dreamed for freedom and peace everywhere, but particularly in America's South, where racism was its most potent. And with the spread of freedom, he dreamed that blacks and whites, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics could all be free at last. This may very well have been the most inspirational speech ever. It certainly inspired the FBI to begin tapping King's home phone. King was no doubt a thorn in the side of the government, as he not only posed to risk to galvanize African Americans, but all poor and disenfranchised Americans into one mighty coalition. At every turn and every possibility, King fought the good fight for everybody during his short life. As a Black man in America, there is no doubt that my life would not be what it is if not for the efforts of Dr. King and his ultimate sacrifice. King once said that the true measure of a man is not where he stands in times of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenges and controversy. During those challenging times, King's resolve never wavered. He never gave up on himself. He never gave up on anyone watching this speech right now, or for anyone around the world who pined to truly be free. I would like to close with one last quote from Dr. King, in light of the tumultuous times we live in today, both at home and abroad. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. Thank you for watching.